Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2016 Forest City Comic Con. I'm Silver Screen Sheen from CJJK, Movie Monday, and it's on every Monday at 1:40. We're here today, something really cool. We got an awesome guest, Ruben Langdon, who was not only involved with the Japanese version of Tokusatsu Sentai, but also the North American version of Power Rangers as well. And so he's, which is rare because usually there wasn't too much crossover. So it's really cool. He's here to talk about that. So if you have any questions after his presentation, absolutely ask them. And we don't have any wireless mics on, so maybe we'll figure something out. People come up here and ask a question, or it's a small enough room where you can probably just yell it. All right, so here's Ruben Langdon, and put your hands together. This is going to be pretty cool.
So I don't have like a proper presentation. I just have some videos I can show you guys, and we can have a little conversation about my life in this world. I started off my career in Japan. I moved there when I was 19, and I got I auditioned for the role of Mako Indy in Beat Fighter Kabuto, which is it came out in the States later as Beetleborgs. Okay. Which I've never seen. I've heard not so good things about it. So compared to the show I was in, anyways, they heavily edited it. Just like the Power Rangers, Saban took out all of the actors and then just used the after the transformation stuff. And since I was an actor on the show in Japan, I got edited out of Beetleborgs. So, in Japan, after the show, I ran for about a year, and I was sort of off and on. I was an irregular helper. I was the high school exchange student from New York, coming to help. Oh, what's going on? Oh, right. Not my computer, so. Thanks. We're right here, right?
Yeah.
No thanks. Get out of here. So I worked on the show for on and off for a year, and it was very challenging for me because at the time I didn't speak Japanese fluently. I spoke it kind of, sort of. By the time the show was done, I spoke it fluently. I had to learn all my lines in Japanese and read the script in Japanese and understand, the story, understand what all the other actors were saying, so I could act, so I could at least give some sort of an accurate performance for the audience. So it was really challenging because I was all self-taught. I didn't go to school to learn Japanese. I just got these scripts and went to my agency and the modeling agency I was with at the time, and they helped me sort of translate this script for everything was in kanji. So I had, at the time, now we can sort of take pictures of things and it's automatic, and studying Japanese is way easier now than it used to be. But for a lot of the more difficult kanji, which they're talking about, other dimensions, and the bad guys were coming from other worlds in the darkness, and then they would come in and beat up the good guys. And there's all these weird names for these, for the different creatures and all this stuff. So it's really hard to understand at some points. But going through that and sort of having that experience, talk about getting your feet wet or jumping out of the frying pan into the fire. That was one way, and I certainly learned Japanese very quickly from doing that. In the show, let me show you just a quick little sort of montage of highlights from the show. Now, I don't know if sound is not, you guys not hearing any sound, huh? All right, let me see what's going on here. Sounds should be headphones, right? Okay. You hear that?
Yep.
Oh, there we go. It's just really low.
It's fine.
Let me see. Boost it up here.
All right. Let's see what happens. Put the lights. All right, we'll get the lights back up. So yeah, that was a long time ago. So that started my career as everything I'm doing now. So if it wasn't for this show, I wouldn't be up here talking to you guys and doing this convention, because I probably, well, anyways, who knows what I would have done. But it was on my 21st birthday. It was the first day of filming, and I got to, transform and fly through the air and beat up the bad guys. And I was like, yes, this is real good for the rest of my life. And in some form or fashion, I sort of transitioned into motion capture, which I'm wearing spandex and beating up bad guys. Just doing it in a different form, but essentially doing the same thing I've done for the past 20 years. And just some trivia about the show. So when the first episode, the first bulk of episodes, I guess 3 or 4 episodes that came out that I did, it wasn't my voice. Even though I spoke Japanese, they told me that, I guess they were worried that the Japanese people couldn't understand me 100% and my pronunciation, even though I thought it was good. Everybody else said it was really good. They were just in case they got somebody to dub my voiceover. And they sort of told me this when we were shooting, and it crushed me. I was like, no, come on, you can't be serious. They're like, no, because they didn't shoot sync sound then. Now they mostly do, but back then, all the shows were dubbed afterwards. They didn't have a sound crew. It was just cheaper to go in for an ADR day at the end of the episodes, or after they would shoot one episode. So I went ahead and I booked another job on the ADR day. And the day before that ADR day, they said, oh, you know what, we've looked at things, and we've heard your voice, and we're gonna let you do your voice. And I was like, no, I already booked that. I've had another commercial booking. So I ended up not doing my voice for that first cluster of episodes. And I was crushed, and I was on this other job just trying to figure out a way to get out of it, and I couldn't. And unfortunately, because I'd already gone to that auditioned and booked that job, and sort of regretted that dearly. But I didn't know. I didn't know that they were gonna let me do my voice at the last minute. They didn't even hint. They sort of told me before, like, no, we're gonna have somebody else do your voice. But luckily later, and if you see later episodes, they actually brought me in and I got to do my voice before I transformed. Once I transformed, it was the other guy's voice, which was still, to me, a little silly, but I still got to do at least my face, my voice. I remember seeing the first few episodes on TV, and it was like a major facepalm. And then for several years, I trained with the Japan Action Club, or Japan, it's now known as Japan Action Enterprise, the stunt guys that do all the stunts for that. And they invited me in and let me train, and I really sort of focused on the stunt aspects, the action aspects. I wanted to be like Jackie Chan, and I remember at the time I got interviewed by a lot of Japanese newspapers because I was the first white guy to transform in a hero series, in the Sentai or Tokusatsu. You guys know the difference between Tokusatsu and Sentai? Some of you?
Yes.
So Tokusatsu is there's sort of, for many years, there's been two shows that have sort of that Toei's been producing that have gone parallel with each other over the years. And the base of them, one was with Kamen Rider, and the other one was the Ranger series. You know, and every year in Japan, unlike in America, well now they do this in America, but in Japan every year they switch up the cast and they switch up the theme, and it's a new cast, a new theme. And the original Power Rangers, as you know, went several seasons before they switched the cast and switched the theme. And then they took over and sort of modeled it after the Japanese style of doing things, and that's what they've been doing to this day. So the Tokusatsu is more of this Kamen Rider. It translates as like a special effects show, but more the Kamen Rider lineage. And B-Fighter sort of fell into that sort of metal bugs lineage. Kamen Rider, if you pay attention to that and all the different versions they have of that. You guys know Kamen Rider?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So we have, in the States, we had Kamen Rider Dark Knight, which was, what was that from Ryuki, right? Kamen Rider Ryuki. Which I also worked on that show as well. We'll get into that. I've worked on pretty much all the superhero shows. Where was I? We're still in Japan. Let's go back to Japan. So I worked on this Tokusatsu series, B-Fighter, and went and trained with the guys. And at the same time, I think they were shooting Car Ranger, which I think came out here as Turbo. Yeah, that was the same season. I remember going and hanging out with those guys at the movie studios out there in Japan, and training with the Japan Action Team and other action teams as well. And after B-Fighter, I found that's what I really love to do. So I just kept training with the action teams for 4 years while I was living in Japan until finally I moved back to the States. I actually went to Hong Kong for a year. And got to work with Jackie Chan and meet all the Hong Kong actors out there. But while I was in Japan, I sort of after B-Fighter, I was looking for the next gig, and there was not really a whole lot for a white guy to do there, other than do sort of like modeling and things. So I paid the bills doing modeling and commercials. I sort of did a lot of commercials. Let me see. Now I'll show you my commercial reel. This is just some of the commercials I did while I was in Japan. They don't pay as well as they do in the States. You don't get residuals, but they do pay decent, and there's a lot less competition there. So like if I were to go to an audition in the States, I'd probably have 200 people, 300 people that I'd be going up against, where in Japan it was between like me and 30 people. So my odds were better. And I sort of, after having the B-Fighter experience and being in immersed in Japanese culture, I sort of understood what the Japanese were looking for in a white guy personality on TV. So I knew how to sort of overact and overdo it, which became a hindrance when I came back to the States because I was like overdoing everything. But it was good because it paid the bills, and it was a lot of fun. So take a look at this. We'll get the lights. And yeah, so I'll explain this after. You guys look over your friend?
Falls back in.
I love Japan. 閉めろと安心。その時開けて閉めろと安心。それでは皆さんご一緒に。その時開けて念のたわき。その時開けて閉めろと安心。やってみろ。はいパパ。その時開けて閉めると安心。まだまだだな。念のたわき。君それ i モード？
そう、E メール送ってるの。携帯の番号がそのままアドレスなの。i モードなら E メールだってお得です。
i モードです。
愛がつながる。できる楽しいドコモの i モー
ド。日本の英語は難しすぎるぞ。日本の英語は難しすぎるぞ。なんだ。難しいね。だからチャート式なんだよね。数学から英語まで数件出版のチャート式。
The Hong Kong commercial.
I was just looking for Sleeping Beauty。我係何生，佢係何太。
上次嗰個舉妹仔搬咗咯喎。
有咁多好樓盤，邊個都可以揾到更好地方搬，全盤在握，先到地產註冊。
We're finding real estate.
高性能がギュッと詰まった小型軽量。小さな高性能、ビルの振動力。ソニー4×4ジャケの開発から借りよ。ソニーの MD で雪がジャケット当たるよ。MD オーディオビデオカセットで HX も当たる。ソニーレックで音楽グッズプレゼント。ソニー。
Got a rug in Japanese. Alright, so we'll get the lights.
Crazy over there.
Oh yeah, good times. So I had, you know, and there's many more that I just would show up on the side of a Japanese person and whatever. But so that's how I paid the bills, and I just kept training with the action teams, really trying to get my physical skills up so I could, you know, be Jackie Chan. That was my goal. And then I went to Hong Kong and actually got to meet Jackie Chan and eventually got to work with him, which was super cool. But I guess before working with Jack, I had a little brief sort of background work on Jackie Chan and my stunts, if you guys ever heard of that. It's like a video he did where he sort of showed how he did the stunts. And I was invited to go out, and I had some friends on the production that said, yeah, come out and work in the background, sort of like help set up some of the stunts and be one of Jackie's stunt assistants. So that was fun. So I got to meet him, but I didn't really get to physically work with him until a little bit later. Okay, this is not my computer. So I moved to the States eventually after being in Hong Kong for a bit and realizing, kind of coming to the same conclusion that I came to in Japan, that the only work for someone out in Hong Kong is if you're really mean looking and you're a bad guy. Because just like how we cast Asians here in North America as all the bad guys, then that's how they cast white people out in Asia. So if you don't look menacing enough, you're not going to get a part. And at the time, as you can see from, maybe now I could look a little mean, but at the time, you know, I still had this baby face, so I couldn't look menacing enough. So my roles were limited. And so I came back to the States, and I started, actually the day right from the airport, I went straight to the set of Power Rangers. I had some friends that were, you know, co-workers of friends that I was training with. I hadn't met any of them, but the guys I would train with in Japan, they said, yeah, if you're gonna go to the States, you should look up, you know, Koichi and the Alpha Stunt Team. They're doing some really amazing stuff on Power Rangers. And by that time, I'd already seen the movie Drive. If you guys have heard of that, it's directed by Steve Wang, who was the director of the Kamen Rider Dragon Knight? No.
Dragon Knight.
Dragon Knight, yes. So he directed that series. He produced and directed that series. And he also was the creator of the Predator suit, the designer. So he's more of a sculptor and sort of special effects makeup guy turned director. And he directed Drive, he directed the Guyver movie. Have you ever heard of it? Yeah. The second one, the Guyver 2.
Guyver 2, Dark Hero.
Dark Hero. That is what. So that was the first collaboration between Koichi and Steve, and then they did Drive. And I was a huge fan. And when the Japanese guys I was training with said, "Yeah, go hook up with Koichi and the guys that were doing Power Rangers," I knew who they were. I knew they had done Guyver and Drive, and I was a huge fan of that stuff. So I went straight from the airport to the set, and they were like, "Oh, you're Mac Windy, you're the Beat Fighter guy." They're like, "Yeah." They're like, "Yeah, do you want to come and train with us tonight?" And I'm jet lagged, and I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So that night I was training with Chris and Patricia from In Space. They were shooting the last episode of In Space. And they hadn't told the actors that they were going to change them out. Like, by this time, you know, they had sort of kept with the same actors over the different seasons, and they didn't tell them, and they didn't know. And I found out, like, that day that they were going to change them out, and I guess they had told them. So they came to training, I guess a couple of days later. All this was sort of unfolding when I was there. So they decided they were going to sort of emulate the Japanese style of switching every year, switch out the actors. Because I think the In Space actors, how long did that go for?
In Space was 1 year.
1 year. But the actors?
They were the last ones to be the continuous seasons, then they flipped it for Lost Galaxy.
Exactly, yes. And that's right, literally that day when they made that decision is when I showed up at the studio and was like, "Hi guys, I'm the Beat Fighter dude." and it was great because, well, that wasn't great, but so I started training. They went into hiatus. They were sort of preparing for the new for Lost Galaxy, and Koichi got me to audition for Red Ranger for Lost Galaxy, and Saban really liked me. And they actually, before they even cast any of the other cast, they said, you're gonna be the next Red Ranger. And I was like, whoa, are you serious? And they said, but, you know, you have the performance, you can do the physical stuff, but your acting, it's a little big. So they actually hired an acting coach. And for the summer, I was working with an acting coach, thinking that I'm going to be the next Red Ranger. Like, Saban hired an acting coach. I'm here. I'm going to be doing this. Went back but after a month, 2 months of being in the States, I was like, well, I have my life back in Japan. Like, I had been living there for 5 years. I had all my stuff. And I said, look, Koichi, I need to go back to Japan and like pack so I can to be here to commit to the series. He goes, yeah, go back. We'll talk to you soon. The day I got back to Japan, I was so excited, riding my motorcycle. I had a motorcycle in Japan. And I just wasn't paying attention. And I turned a corner, and there was a girl on a motorcycle, or on a bicycle. And it's at night. And when the roads are super narrow in Japan, that you can't really see around, so they have these little mirrors in every intersection that you can kind of see around. So she didn't have a light on her bike, so I swung around the corner really quick, and then I saw her, and I was so surprised and caught off guard. I slammed on my brakes, and I dropped the bike on my leg, and I broke my foot. I didn't know if my foot was broken. It hurt really bad. Tried to go to sleep that night, and the next morning I went to the doctor, and they took x-rays, and like, yeah, your foot's broken. Broke my tibia or whatever. So I was sort of like, oh no, now what does this mean for Red Ranger? What's going on? This is like the worst timing this could possibly happen. I called Koichi, and he was like, yeah, that's not good. They're gonna definitely recast you. So he said, just don't tell anybody, and keep it a secret, because it's still like, it was 3 weeks away from the actual start date. And he said, and we'll, just hang out in Japan, because if you come back now and they see you, they're definitely going to recast you. And I said, okay, I'll take your advice. Yeah, I sort of threw in the towel at that time, but he said, yeah, there might still be a chance. So I just sort of waited it out, was limping around. I don't think I needed full-on crutches. I think it was a crack, and I sort of had it wrapped in a cast, a makeshift cast. It wasn't, it's like a boot, one of those boot things that you could walk around in. But I couldn't run, and then some more time went by, and then it came about a week before the due date, and Coach was like, so, can you still come? I'm like, absolutely, yeah, I've got my ticket ready, let's just tell me when. And he goes, okay, well, we're seeing some other people, so just be on standby, and I might need you to come out at the last minute. I'm like, yeah, no, it's fine, I got my ticket, it's all set. And he said, but don't come yet, because again, we gotta wait till the last minute. Then he called me back, and he said, okay, we're seeing a couple guys tomorrow, I'll let you know how it goes. And then he calls me back the next day, and he said, all right, so one of the guys we're definitely not going to pick. So it's just one guy left. We're going to see him tomorrow, and I'll give you a call. Can you get on the plane tomorrow, like tomorrow night? And I'm like, yes, I'll be on the plane. And then he called me back, and he said, we're going to go with the other guy. And I was like, ah. So I was this close to being Red Ranger for Lost Galaxy. But then he sort of gave me the pep talk, and he said, well, look, you got the physical skills. We really could use you on the stunt team. So you always have a home, and which really made me feel like awesome. Like, I was like, okay. And then I sort of knew at that time it was time to transition out of Japan, and that was sort of the catalyst to get me back to the States. So I waited some time. Actually got into another bike accident that was really major. Had was a, what do you call it, a compound fracture. So my bone was exposed on my ankle a few months later. And that actually kept me in Japan for another year because I had to go through 2 surgeries. I ended up, during the summer, I ended up working while I still had bolts in my foot. I told Koichi the whole story, and he said, well, and I came back to the States for the summer between surgeries, and Koichi got me on the stunt team for the last episode of Lost Galaxy, which was very painful because I had bolts in my foot and I had to be a battling. So I was a battling. Do you know the battlings? Yeah. So I was a battling in the last episode, fighting some of the bad guys. But came back to Japan, got the bolts out, did all that, and then eventually made it back to the States just in time for Time Force. And Koichi was like, okay, come on in, we're gonna get you part of the stunt team. And actually it was just before Time Force. I got back, I think I did, on Lightspeed, I was doubling the main actor, what's his name? Sean? I don't know, I think it's Sean. I feel like it's Sean. For Lightspeed, and then Time Force kicked in, and then I was on the show like full time. So I was kind of a helper because I came in halfway through the season on Lightspeed, and I was just helping out. And then for Time Force, I signed up for the whole season. So I was in every episode of Time Force. Yeah. And so I have some videos of some cameos. So every day, a typical day in the life of a stunt guy on Power Rangers is you don't know what you're doing. You show up in the trailers, and they have a costume there, and they have sides, and every day is a different role, a different bad guy, unless you're like one of the main Japanese, all the main Rangers, main colors, red, blue, green, yellow, they were all Japanese guys. Yes, pink was a Japanese guy. Yellow was a Japanese guy. I'm sorry if I crushed your childhood memories. So was a guy in spandex. Yeah, I'm sorry. Luckily, I never was pink or yellow. I was too tall. But so those guys were sort of set. They were always, the Koshige. We call him Koshige because he had hair on his back. That's what Koshige means. It's back hair. He was always pink. Koshige, the hairy back guy he was the Pink Ranger always. So like he was pink, and Matsuda-san, he was always red, and so those guys. But for the other stunt guys on the team, sometimes I was a blue because somebody else, they had to do something else or whatever, and I was Blue Ranger. I remember on Lightspeed I was Titanium Ranger sometimes in the suit, so I did some of that stuff. Some of the stunts for the physical stunts before he transformed, but I was also in the suit after he transformed. And Time Force, it's just every day was a different day, different characters, and then I have a new wardrobe in my trailer every morning, and they're like, okay, you're gonna be doing this today, and here's your sides, and learn your lines because you're gonna do this. So here's just some cameos from my time on Time Force.
Ladies and gentlemen, over on your left-hand side, we have what is known in the biz as the craft service table. This is where all the stars come and get their snacks between takes. Take your pictures, everyone. Take your pictures.
Guys, follow me. Hi. Okay. I just saw Frankie Chang shooting movie right
Frankie
now.
Chang! Down that way, look!
Right down there.
Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear that? Frankie Chang, the world famous action cartoonist, down there. Let's go!
Down there, guys. Stop!
Hey, what do you think you're doing?
Time Force. This is an emergency. We need to commandeer your vehicle.
Get lost.
Wait. Jen, you have to be polite.
There was a couple others in there that I forgot, but yeah, anyways, good time. So now we're caught up to Power Rangers, and then after that I got into all the other stuff. But any questions about life in Japan, Sentai, Tokusatsu, hentai? No, Tokusatsu. Yes.
Okay, so being a young guy in Japan
Yeah.
before being fighter, how did you even get into the audition process? And how did they audition you, and how did that go? Because I know it's totally different than the way it works.
Right, so out of necessity, really, I signed up with some modeling agencies in Japan. When I first arrived in Japan, I didn't know anybody, and I had sort of a friend of a friend was living on an army base, Camp Zama, outside of Tokyo, and I had that person's phone number. And when I got there, I called that person, and they said, "Yeah, come on over. We'll I know who you are. We've never met, but I know who you are." And so I got set up actually working on the army base as a civilian in a warehouse moving boxes for minimum wage US at the time, which didn't pay enough for me to live off base. Like the yen was very strong at that time, and Japan being as expensive as it was. So I needed to supplement my income, and people on the base said, well, a great way is to go sign up with these talent agencies or modeling agencies, freelance agencies. And so I did that, and I booked the first job I went to. It was like a print ad for Nissan or something. And the money was good, and I was like, wow, this is way better than working in a warehouse on the base. So I just started signing up with more agencies and trying to do that work as much as possible, because it definitely was easier and paid better, and it was fun. And then I did some commercials, some background stuff in commercials, and then eventually the agency, from time to time, there's like small roles in TV things that auditions would pop up, but I got it through because I was with these agencies. They called me for the audition for the role for B-Fighter, and so happened to be just about a month before the audition, through another friend, completely unrelated to the Gaijin Japanese agencies, I started training with the Toei Action Club, which was sort of working with Jack, and some of the guys from Toei were actually on the series, and I don't know if they put in a good word for me, or I don't know what happened, but by coincidence, I just started training with them, and I was falling in love with this action training, with doing martial arts, fight choreography, and gymnastics, and then when I got the audition, I was like, holy smokes, what a coincidence! This is great, and it just sort of spun from there.
Was the role always meant to be like an American actor, or like when you were auditioning, was it all Caucasian people, or was it a mix of different ethnicities, or did they know what they were doing?
It was a mix, actually. I went to the audition. It was mostly Caucasian, but there were some half Japanese, half American folks there. And then for the callback, it was just me and then two other half Japanese, half American, I guess they're American or English-speaking European Westerners. And they spoke fluent Japanese and fluent English. And that's so for the callback, I thought for sure they're not going to pick me. They're going to go with one of these guys. Because at the time, my fluency in Japanese was not there yet. So when I got the call that I actually got the role, I was super stoked. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. Anything else? Any other questions? Yeah.
So I was just wondering, do you feel that it maybe sound kind of an odd question, but do you feel that Japan is your home, or you're just visiting, as opposed to like in the U.S.?
Right. Japan's a tough one. I lived there for 5 years. Started a business there and went back and forth for the past 10 years, right? 15 years. I've been sort of back and forth business trips and things. Co-owner in a business, immerse myself in the culture, speak the language, and in a lot of ways it feels at home. But in a lot of ways, I always feel like an outsider because of the island culture that it is. They have it's sort of a built-in discriminatory. I mean, they're super open. The people are super open, and they love foreigners, and they're like they embrace them. But deep embedded in the culture, there is a concept of once a foreigner, always a foreigner. And I know people who live there. They have their they're basically the equivalent of a green card there. They've been there 20 years. They speak fluent Japanese. They can read and write kanji. They do but they're always considered a foreigner. And it's just sort of like that's just the underlying. Not that anybody's gonna treat them that way, but it's like an unwritten. Actually, it probably is written somewhere. That's probably why it is the way it is. It's probably written somewhere that foreigners will always be foreigners, even though the people don't feel that way. So that sort of, it pops up from time to time, and it's interesting because, being a white guy in America, you always sort of, I feel, you're sort of, you have that privilege, right? You're not, minorities in North America, and I'm sure it's the same in Canada, probably not as bad as America, but minorities have a rougher time, always have, and hopefully they won't always will. I hope, we see times are changing. But it's interesting to be sort of a white guy in America and not really have that exposed to that in a personal level, not experience that, and then go to Japan and then sort of experience that a little bit. But in a reverse, because it wasn't like I was having a rough time. It was because I was a white guy, I had these roles and I got extra attention. But it's also because I was a white guy, in other ways, I wouldn't get attention, or I wouldn't be accepted as everyone else. So it is really a weird dichotomy thing going on there. But as far as, yes, feeling at home, I just went back. I was just there last month for a month. It was my first time not my first time. This year, I've been there 3 times this year for projects. So there's a lot coming, guys, just so you know. I can't go into what I've been working on, but there's some cool stuff on the horizon. And I had been in 5 years. Last time I was there before that was during the quake, the 3/11 quake, the Fukushima disaster. And I thought I was never going to go back because I thought Fukushima was going to destroy Japan. And it slowly is, but I thought it was going to be much worse than what it is. So eventually I got the call for jobs, and I was kind of looking at my radiation meter, and it's okay, I think I'll go back. It's okay. Just don't eat the fish. So it's, and I felt, it was amazing. This year's been amazing to go back and reconnect with that energy, and I felt very much at home. I felt like, yeah, this is the home that I remember. And I went and visited some old friends and old places. So there's forever, there will always be an aspect of Japan that feels at home for me. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Sorry that long-winded answer.
No.
Yes.
What were some of the differences, comparisons from what you did in Japan for what you're doing in America now?
The exaggerated acting.
The exaggerated acting. Yeah, that's a good example. It's exaggerated acting is probably the biggest difference. But a bigger audience in America, in Hollywood, it reaches the world where things, these commercials stayed in Japan. They didn't go outside of Japan. And the TV show, though it came out as Beetleborgs, is sort of out, but it still shifted. It wasn't the same show that came out in Japan. So, you're doing things for a smaller audience. The Japanese audience is a huge population, but it's a niche market where Hollywood products reach the world. And the video games, that come out of Japan as well, they reach the world. So, yeah, those are probably the biggest things. Yep.
I know you said you can't say what you've been working on, but are you wanting to work on like the new one that's been Cowering from Ninja Steel or anything that big?
I always put it out there to Koichi. I saw Koichi when I was back in the States, or back in Japan. This guy is he's the #1 director in Japan now. He's directing everything. He's directing the new Kamen Rider series. Or no, the movie for the series. Because they have like movies. I don't know if he's doing actually episodes of the series. But he's doing a movie for the series. And I told him, I told him this last time I saw him, I said, look, I'm forever indebted to you. You know, I owe my career. I wouldn't have been able to work with Jackie Chan or James Cameron if it wasn't for the experiences that Koichi gave me. So I said, anything you need, any cameo, anything you need on anything, I'm there, just call me. So he was like, no, I really appreciate that. You know, he's super nice. Even now, he's still so humble, even though he's become like this super famous, like #1 director in Japan. But I would do anything, basically. If he called me right now, as Ruben, I need you tomorrow. Okay, yep, I'm dropping everything, I'm going. Same with him and Samuel, I actually ended up living in Samuel's backyard during my whole time working on, do you guys know who Samuel Hung is? Yeah. So I had a good friends with his son still, and just worked with him on a project. But during martial law and during Power Rangers, I was living in Samuel's backyard at his guest house, and learning a lot from just hanging around Samuel and going to the set and driving him to the set. The first season of martial law, I drove him to work every morning. So Samuel and Koichi are like two guys that they call me anytime I drop everything and go with them again and do anything. They've really done a lot for me in my career. Yeah. Anything else? We've got like 5 minutes left. Yep.
Okay, so I know in Tokusatsu, sometimes they'll do reunion shows or hero stage shows, or they'll have previous actors come for cameos or whatever. I know that the Metal Hero franchise is kind of not a lot going on there right now.
Yeah.
But have they ever had you come back to play Mac, or?
Not in Japan. Actually, this is a little trivia. I wish I had the pictures here. I think it's Wild Force. They did the 10th anniversary for the Red Rangers.
Forever Red.
Forever Red.
Yeah.
So, and I was sort of already off the show as a regular. I was only on time shorts, but Koichi brought me in, and they brought in Beetleborg. They went into the warehouse.
Yes,
Yeah.
And my Yanma, my Mac Windy Yanma character, which I don't know the Beetleborg name for him, but the Dragonfly Borg, I think that was the name for him. He was all beat up and broken and missing pieces and stuff. But Koichi was like, we need some new bad guys for this episode. So Ruben, since you were the Dragonfly guy in Japan, I figured you'd want to be him here. It's like, absolutely. So I had to wear the suit, which I didn't get to do in Japan. So, and it was the same exact suit, just all beat up and full of Japanese guy sweat. So it was really cool to be in that episode as, Dragonfly Borg or whatever you want, the new name. They've created some new name for the bad guy, and then fight the Rangers, all the Red Rangers in the reunion episode. And I also got to be a Red Ranger for that big explosion scene. They didn't have enough stunt guys. I forget. I don't know. So yeah, that was cool to be a Red Ranger and the Dragonfly Borg, So that was sort of a reunion episode in a way.
Yeah, it is a reunion.
The behind the scenes reunion. But no, unfortunately, I don't think Beef Fighter Kabuto, the series itself, wasn't as popular in Japan as some of the other, Kamen Rider series, so probably didn't warrant.
Well, you never know. I mean, like, some of the Metal Heroes have come back here and there.
Right.
Gavin and stuff like that.
Gavin, yeah, for sure. Well, Gavin was pretty popular, though.
That's true.
Gavin was popular. Actually, I trained with Watari Hiroshi, who was Was he Gammon or was he Shaliban? Do you know Shaliban?
Yep.
Okay, wow, you guys know your stuff. That is awesome. All right, any last questions before we close it up? I think we got like last minutes, good. Thank you guys, it's been an awesome con, and I think I'm gonna head back upstairs for some autographs and stuff, but this is it for the panels. You guys rock, thanks for knowing your stuff, and laughing at my goofy overacting.